Hello there, and welcome to our video discussion of Twin Peaks: The Return, episode 13. What story is that, Charlie? And I am William, and with me is...
Sean.
And we'll be going through all the stuff that's happened in episode 13 of Twin Peaks: The Return. We've had videos covering all the episodes so far. We're going to keep going through the end, because there's only 18 episodes, so we're getting closer to the end of it than we are to the beginning. And this episode, so episode 11, or not 11, episode 12 was one that got a little bit of flack from people for disappointing them with the Audrey stuff and the way some of that was handled. And then this episode gives you just a little bit more of Audrey, and then gives you something that is even more of an anti-fan service moment than that.
Or the most fan service moment.
It's hard to
tell. If you like to make fun of James, then as somebody said, another 25 years of ridicule now for James after doing this performance.
Yeah.
The Audrey stuff in this, it was, I mean, again, what they have done with female characters a lot is they make them seem one way, which normally is annoying or, you know what I mean, is basically just complainers or you know, just people you don't want to be around. Yeah. But then later they'll reveal like, hey, there's reasons for this. Yeah. You know, like Truman's wife with the things she went through with losing her son and all that. So it seems like Audrey, I mean, what do we think? Is she in a coma? Is she with a therapist? Is that the deal? You know, is it kind of like, is it this therapy kind of exercise where, you know, she really doesn't know what reality is too much, and her therapist is playing the role of her husband, you know, like to kind of subside her and make her calm her down and stuff. And last time people brought up this theory last time. I think we posted it in the info on our video because we hadn't went into it, and we saw some people bringing it up. But it seems like they intentionally left that stuff out last time. You know, got everybody worked up, and now this time they just dole out just enough information to know something isn't right. You know, she doesn't know where the Roadhouse is all of a sudden. Yeah. You know, she doesn't know where the Roadhouse is. You know, the episode is called "What Story Is That, Charlie?" And Charlie says something along the lines of like, "Do you want me to end your story?" Yeah. And Sarah Palmer says to Hawk, I guess on the previous episode, I think. Yeah. You know, something along the lines of, it's a sad story we're in or living in or something like that. So with Audrey, her reality, you know, isn't the same, or maybe is she in some sort of like purgatory, or, you know, obviously there's not like purgatory in Twin Peaks, but you know what I mean? Is she in some sort of like state of not being in the real world? And then just like Sarah Palmer, there's some things going on with her, obviously, and the story stuff. So it's really weird to see kind of both sides of this. And also, none of her family members have ever brought up Audrey. Yeah. You know, if Richard is her mother, if that's what it turns out to be, or even not, like, it's odd that nobody has brought up Audrey at all.
Well, and two, like, there's not many options as to who could be the parents of Richard Horne, because he is the grandson of Ben Horne. And, you know, in terms of, well... Donna Hayward was theoretically the child of Ben Horne and her mother. So, but like the fact that they haven't mentioned her character at all, and Laura Flynn Boyle obviously is not going to be in that, and she wasn't even in Firewalk with Me. They recast Donna for that, so I don't think they would go that route, and I'm not sure exactly. Like, Donna seemed to be quite upset about the Ben Horne thing. So would she want to reclaim the Horne name, and then, because I think she want to keep Hayward, you know, as an honor to like her father.
You would think whatever, if some tragedy happened to her and she had a kid, you would think Doc Hayward would, you know,
that would have been mentioned,
raise that kid, you know, would have raised that kid, because he is obviously, you know, was still alive in the Twin Peaks universe during this season and stuff. So yeah, and I don't know, it kind of screams Audrey with her trauma or whatever's going on with her. Yeah. You know, this kind of not being quite right. The constant allusions to Evil Coop going into her room, you know, and that could all be a red herring. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, they could just throw us for a loop. Who knows? But that's obviously the path they're kind of maybe wanting us to go down, at least to entertain the idea that it is a possibility.
Yeah. So there's the Audrey stuff. Like, a lot of people have theories as to what exactly is going on there. That it's, not real life. That it's, like you said, it could be a psychiatrist type thing. It could be, some people, like, wasn't there a theory that was like a play or something that was being seen, or like our TV show, or all kinds of different things.
She was saying too, like, who am I? I don't feel like I'm myself. Like,
yeah,
it's very, it's very mysterious, which they love to do that. It's another little mystery right now that we have to solve. I was watching a video I'd watched before, but it's that one that was shot, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago, and it's is it Matchkin Amick? Am I pronouncing her name right? I don't.
Matchkin Amick.
Yeah, her, Kyle MacLachlan, and then one of the producers on Twin Peaks, and David Lynch, all sitting at that bar.
Yeah.
Have you seen that video before on YouTube? I watched it years ago.
Think so.
And I watched it again. It's like a half-hour conversation, and it's great. Anyway, he was talking. He brings up again, like, being forced to solve the mystery of Laura Palmer, and he said it was so stupid because that was the golden goose, and then you had that golden goose, and then you could lay all these other little mysteries, these little eggs, and solve those. And this just seems like another little egg in this bigger story of it's a really simple, it's this offbeat thing that we just have, and we've only got 2 segments of it. You know what I mean? Like, and it's fun to just throw these mysteries in there, and it's like we even question the reality of it.
One too, because it's easy to forget. In the original series, there was a lot of B or C subplots that really didn't tie back into the overall larger narrative that would still, like, go along throughout the show. So how many of these things are just those kind of B or C level plots that just are there to fill airtime and show you characters, and how much of it ties back into the main storyline that has to do with Mr. C and Cooper and everything around the lodges? And
and I think even if it doesn't connect, like, obviously they're putting as much story in here as they feel is necessary, because they kind of dictate it, their amount of episodes, and everything.
I mean, like, in the last episode, like the season 2, Audrey was in, like, the bank vault stuff that had nothing to do with the lodges and Cooper.
Yeah, I think all of that had to do with network TV and all that. I feel like now, if it doesn't connect directly, it is at least a thematic thing they want to explore within the show. You know what I mean? Even if it doesn't, the plot maybe doesn't come back into the larger arc. It seems like a lot of things might, or they may just be red herrings to kind of throw us off and never go anywhere, like possibly the fingerprints things with the Foucault's brothers or whatever. So regardless, it seems like it's something Lynch and Frost just like to play with. They're really kind of doing a lot to comment on television and, like, genre film. You know what I mean? Genres of film, TV series, and all of that with this. So it's really like this whole season has been like a huge canvas for them to kind of play in again, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and so talking like the main storyline, so you start the episode off, you see Cooper and the Mitchum brothers, or you see Dougie and the Mitchum brothers come into the Lucky 7 Insurance Company, and they're, like, those really weird music's playing, and they're dancing, and they have the pink ladies there, and Dougie looks like he's just having a blast going along, and then Tony sees them and hides behind his desk. Just because, like, seeing the Mitchum brothers with Dougie indicates that his plan failed, or Duncan Todd's plan failed.
Especially them doing a conga line through the building.
So then he, calls Duncan Todd, and he's told that he has to fix the issue himself. So then, he goes and gets poisoned to try to kill Dougie. But so you see, the Bushnell stuff. So, like,
and then the officers too. They say that he's cracking. Yeah. So it seems like they may want to.
Well, they're going to tell Duncan Todd.
Yeah, they're going to tell Duncan Todd, so maybe they want to take him out now.
My earlier predictions in early episodes that there would be something to do with, like, Tony, which is with him and Ike the Spike and Dougie, like, that never came to pass. That played out much differently than you would have thought. Because I just thought that would be cool, because, like, that would be, like, Tom Sizemore, like, that would be interesting, because, he's in a lot of action movies and, like, gritty movies, and then here he's, like, whimpering and crying and having breakdowns. So, like, when he tries to poison Dougie, Dougie goes look at the pie, and he comes back after he's poisoned his coffee, and because the police officer told him where to get the poison, Then he comes back and sees dandruff on Tony's suit jacket, and he's like kind of touching
massaging him, kind of,
and
maybe.
Then Tony kind of has a breakdown and takes the coffee and pours it out.
Yeah, and he throws it in the bathroom in the urinal, and is crying. And the guy says, "That bad, huh?" Like that was a great moment. And two, before that, he kind of watched Dougie basically not know how to get in the building. Yeah. And it seems like at that moment, he was almost feeling sympathy for him. Like, this is almost like a child.
You see him walk into the glass door and somebody has to open the door for him.
And you could see there, he was kind of like almost feeling bad about it. And then it just kind of escalated from there.
And then, so then, like, Tony confesses everything to Bushnell, and Dougie's there, and Dougie's just repeating what's being said, that, you know, where Tony just takes it as him, like, confirming details.
Confess. He says, I'm going to confess.
Yeah, so it was very nice to see that. And then, like, the Mitchum brothers gave, like, the gifts to Bushnell, and then they gave the gift to Dougie, because they gave Sonny Jim, like, the playground kit that's, like, super deluxe, kitschy, Vegas-looking stuff. And Janie E is just, like, smitten with this current version of Dougie, because apparently he's good in the sack, and he's in much better shape, and he's making money for the family.
Yeah, he's providing for sure.
And, you know, he only got 2 rides from Jade. So you have a lot, like, all the Dougie stuff didn't really progress any further this episode. I mean, the key theme in this episode...
We got more Dougie than last episode, though.
Yeah, it wasn't just like a baseball going thud, like off the shoulder, but, like, Pie was like a very central element of this episode, because Dougie's life was essentially saved because he went to the pie shop.
Twice now.
Twice, yeah. You had Becky... Shelly and Becky talked on the phone, and Shelly convinced Becky to come and get some pie at the diner. So you have her getting the pie. Then later you have the stuff with Norma and Big Ed, and like when Norma's talking to about her business, about the pies, like there's a very central like conversation that occurs.
Yeah, it's basically that, you know, they got their franchise, and this one isn't kind of the other ones are profitable, and this one is not profitable, or it's doing worse than the others. And it sounds like with their deal, they used her recipe, but they can get the ingredients wherever they want, and she gets all hers locally sourced and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And part of me wonders, like, you know, that's like a very traditional plot line, like, oh, you know, it's kind of the big business thing, and a pushback, and you want to see the little business succeed that has a good heart and the business owner. But also, I almost wonder, like, is it, you know, she specifically says, you know, these pies are made with like love and care and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's okay. You know, is that Lynch and Frost like, okay, maybe Twin Peaks won't be a huge thing.
Yeah.
But it's okay. Like, you know, there's these other things that can support art, or things that are done with love and care that aren't just kind of churned out.
They're not following the more corporate mold that's like easier to sell or easier to profit from product. Like, there's a lot of like stuff like that, but like the pie stuff has been very big, because, you know, like in the original series, like the diner food and the coffee was all a big thing that was brought up some, but it seems like in the revival or in return, specific episodes have leaned very heavily on different things.
Yeah, I mean, Gordon Cole, you know, they've all kind of touched on that. I don't know if it's more than what it seems. This could be, you know, Lynch playing lip service to love and coffee and pie, but somebody brought up a good point that do like the Blue Rose Task Force agents, do they like to eat cherry pie to get a feel for the land or the geography wherever they're at? Like, is it almost like a testing thing to kind of get a temperature on wherever they're at and wherever they're working? I don't know if that's for sure, but that's a very interesting theory. You know, like is there more to it than what it seems? Obviously, it seems like the cherry pie, at least with Dougie's plot line, you know, it was in the dream for the Mitchum brothers. You know, is this something from the White Lodge or the waiting room? Like, there's some force there, I think, that is using cherry pie to save Dougie time and time again.
Cherry pie. And speaking of Dougie, so the opposite side of that character, so Mr. C, or Evil Cooper, goes to Montana to the gang hideout where Ray is at, and goes in and wants Ray, and gets challenged to an arm wrestling match.
with Derek Mears from Friday the 13th remake.
Who was Jason in the 2009 version, and he has to go and arm wrestle him in order to get what he wants. Because if he wins, he becomes a new boss, and if he loses, he has to either do what the boss tells him or he dies.
But all he wants is Ray. Yeah, he says he doesn't want to be your boss. And Sue, I think the one guy that's kind of reffing that it was in what is that Coen Brothers film with George Clooney?
Brother Arthur.
I think he's in that, and then also too maybe Wild at Heart or something. Somebody else pointed him out in another Lynch film. But yeah, that whole scene. One, it just seems ridiculous from the offset, but ridiculous in the right ways that I love, because it's just, it's just ridiculous TV logic that's super fun. But also too, like watching this as Mr. C is playing with him, I was like, okay, now I really love Mr. C. Like something about I actually start liking him now. As evil as he is, I really like him.
His very like the way he talks is like very specific, and it's very plotting and kind of slow. Like it's like the way he talks is is. I wonder if they do anything in post with that at all, or if that's just the delivery straight out of like how Tom McLaughlin is doing it.
With what all Lynch does with sound design and sound modulation, I wouldn't be surprised if he added something on there.
But like, he when he says it's like, what is this, kindergarten? and it's
then Derek Mears punches him in the back of the head. He's like, that's from the nursery school teacher.
And then like he's not even really phased. He just kind of walks forward. And then when they do the arm wrestling, he constantly so you start out. Like, I didn't really think that Mr. C was going to lose. He's going to win. And then, like, they're kind of sitting there and it's going back and forth a little bit. And
it's almost like he's figuring out what arm wrestling is in that moment. Like, he is not aware of that
like,
concept.
Starting positions. He's like, it's really uncomfortable when my arm is here. But it's even more uncomfortable when it's here. And then he shows the gang leader that. And then...
I love the heckling around, too, and the drama. Because that's all that is. It's this most simple scene you could do is fake arm wrestling. There's no stunts involved, but all the drama is built up on Mr. C playing with him and all the heckling and reactions and Ray freaking out the whole time, like being okay and then freaking out. Like that was a phenomenal scene, I think.
And then you see like as people start to realize that, Mr. C is the one playing around, not the other way, not the other direction. So then once he decides he's had enough of it, he just breaks his arm and then punches his face in.
And kills him.
Kills him dead. So never question Mr. C.
And then Ray pulls out a gun, but they all grab him.
Yeah.
And then basically give him over. And he says, leave us alone. And they all go out and watch it on that big screen.
Except for like their accountant who's like, do you need money?
Yeah.
And then he says no. Mr. C says no. So then Mr. C questions Ray. And Ray says the entire thing at the prison and all that was coordinated by Philip Jeffries, who gave him the ring, the owl ring, to put on Mr. C once he was dead, and that he needed to do it because Cooper was going to kill him first.
Mm-hmm.
So then when he relays that, Mr. C, Evil Coop, makes him put on the ring and then ask him the coordinates. And he gives him a piece of paper that has the coordinates from Hastings. Then he asks him where Philip Jeffries is. What does he say, the Dutchman?
Yeah, I think the Flying Dutchman. Maybe the Flying Dutchman.
He's like, it doesn't matter, it's not a place. And then Mr. C shoots and kills him in the head.
Yeah.
Shoots him in the head and kills him.
And then while this is happening, Richard Horne walks in.
Yeah, Richard Horne.
And they're in Montana, right?
Yeah, it's in Montana, so they're not in Twin Peaks. And so Richard Horne is there, and like it's played just ambiguous enough as to like, does he know who he is? Does Richard know who Mr. C is or Evil Coop? Is he noticing anything? Is he feeling anything? Is there anything
is he feeling
there?
a link?
Or is it him just looking at this dude that just came in and just upended that entire criminal organization?
Yeah.
And doesn't even really want to be a part of it.
But he definitely moves to the front of the crowd, right up to the screen. He doesn't hang back and like, oh, I like, you know what I mean? He's almost more interested in Mr. C than anybody else in the room, despite what's going on.
Yeah, so
it seems very intentional. And two, so we don't know when he left because we had heard that somebody ran that one guy off the road at the end of was it last episode? Episode 12.
Yeah, because episode 12 was when they're at the Roadhouse, and the guy that we haven't seen before says somebody ran him off the road.
Yeah, and that maybe sounds like Richard Horne is getting out of town because of the things he's done.
Because it's obviously not
red.
Because we expected like, oh, is Evil Coop or Mr. C, like, is he in Twin Peaks? No, he's in Montana.
Well,
unless the timelines.
So that's what I'm thinking,
loose.
because watching this gives huge evidence of the fact that the timeline in Twin Peaks, we're not seeing it sequentially.
Well, because too, so like when Tony, after he sees the Mitchum brothers and Dougie get to the office, he goes to the police station and talks to the cop that he knows. And he says to meet him at some bar at like 9 or 9:30. Mm-hmm. You would assume PM, because it'd be odd if he was already at work and saw that before 9:30 a.m. and bars aren't usually open that early. So is the time passage that we see the stuff with Tony and all that, then it's the next day, a day later, when he tries to slip Dougie the poison?
I think it is. And two, like, are they compacting those timelines because it's fine because they're not lining up exactly right now with Twin Peaks? But the thing specifically about Twin Peaks, the timeline's not being exact, because Becky specifically says, he left 2 days ago when she's talking to her mom,
to Shelley.
She says he has been gone for 2 days. So that was the day that I think it was at the same day that the incident happened at the that is the same day that the incident happened outside the Double R with the gunshot and all that. And that was after they found Major Briggs's message.
Yes.
But whenever Bobby Briggs sees Big Ed and Norma, he says, "We found some stuff my dad left today."
Yeah.
He says today. Yeah. And that scene takes place after that.
Yeah.
So we're either being shown out of sequential order because it's, just because it's the way it wants to be presented. I don't feel like there's any weird time stuff like actually happening. Yeah. Maybe there is though, but I feel like it's just the way they want to reveal these information.
Well, too, Bobby said we found some stuff that my dad left. I do not think they would jump ahead to have already gone to Jack Rabbit's palace and finding something there and then not show it, because I think it's of importance to the lodges and all that stuff. So
and there had to have been a reason that they showed the pie scene before that when she said, "Oh, it happened 2 days ago." Yeah, I think they want you to know that things aren't happening sequentially, and maybe you're just supposed to not worry about it too much because it's not important as long as you're getting the information and you're not being spoiled too much on some of the revelations and certain character deaths and stuff like that. But apparently, I think Lynch said you can watch this out of order, and even still, I don't think you can watch it out of any order because obviously when people die and stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like that's kind of like a spoiler on some level. But
it'll be interesting to see like the fan edits come out once this is all done, where people edit the 18 episodes sequentially and cut out a lot of the filler.
People have been building. There's a Google Doc somewhere, and I haven't looked at it in detail, but essentially they've been doing some detective work and penciling in like, okay, this is what happened this date. This is what happened this date. Like I think right now they're on September 30th, and only 2 events have happened. And I think it was in like Vegas or wherever.
Yeah. So like keeping all the exact timelines of everything straight is a little bit difficult. But yeah, so you see like
I'll post that timeline thing too in the comments on our website.
Then we also see Hutch and Chantel as they drive through Utah.
Talking about Mormons.
Yeah, they talk about Mormons about how
she sees a sign and goes, "Utah Mormons."
Yeah, and he says something like, "You can marry multiple wives, so why don't more people do it?" And she's like, "Probably because of the drink thing, because they can't have caffeine or alcohol."
Yeah, why ain't there more of them?
Let's see. And then, like we said, so when Bobby's at the diner at the Double R, he sees Norma and Big Ed, and he sits at the table with them. And
that scene brought me home a little bit. Like, a lot of this episode felt like classic Twin Peaks, I think. The pacing, everything.
So then you saw Walter come in, who was talking to or kissed Norma on the mouth. So you seem to indicate some romantic relationship there. And
Big Ed had said
to Bobby that
there's going on.
Yeah, there's nothing going on here, and he wasn't on the same side as Norma. And then Bobby and Big Ed go and move to a different table when Norma's talking to Walter about the business, about the pies and the ingredients and all that stuff, and about how the Double R Diner isn't as profitable as the franchised restaurants.
And Big Ed cannot take his eyes off of her as well.
So it's a very sad story, or a very sad scene to see Big Ed and Norma not together. Because at first you see them at the table and you're like, oh, there's a happy ending for at least somebody. Mm-hmm. But then it doesn't appear that they're together. So, not a happy ending. And, Bobby is also just kind of looking for Shelley. So, is the scene that we're watching right there, so did that take place before the shooting through the window? Because there wasn't anything indicating they had replaced the window or anything in the building.
Yeah.
And there wasn't any police tape or anything. I'm not sure how long they would keep police tape or how long any of that would be investigated. But it doesn't seem like this is a direct following, unless it really is like a day after the prior episode. It's all slightly confusing.
I think it is the day they went to his mom's house.
Because that would have been before the shooting.
Yeah, I think this is when this took place.
Because he was looking for Shelley, and asked where she was at, and was looking kind of longingly for her. Mm-hmm. And it seems like the episode where he is with Becky and Shelley, and Red shows up, kind of seemingly with Shelley like under his spell, that may have made him been less likely to have that reaction when he's looking for her. So
and really, you think if they would have intentionally aimed for this to take place earlier in the series, like that would have been good I think that would have been a good tease for the fans wanting him and Shelley to like, oh, what's the relationship? Yeah. Like this would have been a good place where, oh, I want him to see Shelley. I want them to interact to see what's going on. Yeah. And we would have got no interaction, and then later got the interaction with the shooting and her getting thrown off the car and all that. So you could see this just being put out of place just for story development reasons. And and it also kind of made me think of, something like, say, I don't know, Godard, like the film Breathless, when he had to cut down the film for run times, and then he made like jump cuts in the film. Yeah. And, it was basically to cut down the time, but he saw, oh, it still works. Yeah. Like he broke cinema editing conventions and realized people could still understand what's going on. This is almost like Lynch experimenting and like saying, I don't have to have this in order. It's not a statement. It's not, this isn't putting it out of order just to put it out of order, like, Pulp Fiction or something like that. It isn't like, to try to make it more interesting. It's almost like, I want the flow of the information to be like this, and maybe I'd rather put this here because it's okay. It doesn't hurt the story if we see this out of order. It might make people a little confused, but once they understand it the first go around, or they realize like, hey, don't get hung up on the timelines of the stuff happening. Just think about the individual scenes and information you're given, and what those scenes mean for the characters and everything. Because it's not all about the plot for his stuff, I think.
Yeah, so then we also see a scene with Nadine running into Jacoby, or Jacoby goes past her store and sees the shovels, and then Nadine and Jacoby talk, and it's apparently the first time that they've seen each other in like 7 years.
She was on the ground looking for a potato.
Yeah, so
the day of the big storm.
Very Nadine stuff. So you see like that interaction. That's just more of seeming like a tangential storyline that is just one of those kind of like B plots that is just out there to exist. And
unless
then Nadine,
those shovels end up amounting to anything.
It's the key.
Yeah.
And then Nadine said she's shoveled herself out of the shit.
Yeah.
And to get that little bit of information.
Yeah, it seems like there may be some romantic possibilities between those two.
Well, and two, the fact that she isn't in the same scenes with Ed seems to indicate that they're not together.
And she seems to be there at night watching his show. Like it's almost like she lives maybe in the back of the store or something.
And so then after that, then like had the Audrey stuff that we mentioned, like we didn't mention earlier. Like there's some discussion online about like what's in the background, like the reflections in windows or shadows or things like that have been things that people have always pointed out. Because in different episodes, there's been different things. In this episode, there was some discussion about like the shadow of Audrey in the window, like what that's doing. Like it does look at times like it doesn't exactly match what she's doing or the way she's standing, but it's really hard to get much beyond that unless you do like a screen grab and blow it up.
Yeah, I didn't go back and watch any of that, and I always try to kind of keep an eye on that stuff. But do you remember if it was a shot of? Is she in the shot with the mirror? Or is it another shot? Is it like a shot of Charlie and she's in a reflection there?
I think it's the reverse of her.
The reverse of her?
I would have to go back. Yeah. I just remember like it was like or maybe it was the shots with her. I don't
remember. It could be a continuity error also. I think there was an article written today or something. I haven't read it yet, but it's like sometimes an error is just an error. And, if you've ever worked on a film to any degree, there's, you can do 100 takes of something and then realize only a couple of them, a few of them can match up with hand placement and all this stuff. Like sometimes there's just so much to look for and pay attention to, and you got all these moving pieces that sometimes things just mess up and things aren't different. So if it's like a opposite shot, you can see her like just changing places or not matching up with her mouth because they're getting his dialogue and he's just shooting reactions or something. You know what I mean?
I remember watching it and thinking that it looked like, because I've been, being a Lynch thing, you look for those details because you everything you would assume is intentional. And I would assume I think if you mess up the reflection, I think that'd be easy enough to fix and post with visual effects, but
again,
and not serious CG just compositing the shots and mapping stuff over.
Again, if anybody did it intentionally, I think it would be Lynch. He is, but sometimes stuff messes up. But reflections and stuff like that have been a through line in Twin Peaks. To where there's something to watch,
So then you see that stuff with Nadine, and then we see the Roadhouse where the MC was introducing or whatever role he would have the Roadhouse introducing James Hurley, who reminds us all of the beautiful song that he sang in the original series with Donna and Maddie as his backup singers. And when I saw that they announced that James Hurley was the one performing at the Roadhouse, I'm like, okay.
You knew, they're not going to have a new song. It's got to be.
So I was like, are they doing this? And then it was that.
I couldn't be more happy for that. This season has given, it gave you a lot of things that you didn't know you wanted. Some things you may have wanted, it hasn't given us. This is one thing I did not think it would give us, and I did not know I wanted this bad, just because it's like one of those things where the longer you have build up and tension for a drama or suspense, their ending, their release is so great. This is almost like a 25-year-old joke that has waited this long, and this entire season almost has been waiting for this punchline with having 9 Inch Nails, the Chromatics, and everybody else, and then now we have James Hurley of all people.
Yeah, because the other thing with the timeline stuff is what are the timelines? Mm-hmm. Were 9 Inch Nails the opener? Were the 9 Inch Nails the opener for James Hurley?
And two, was this the night when he walks in towards the beginning of the series? When Shelley's there, is Shelley there right now? She says
he's still cool.
Yeah, is Shelley there now, or just not cutting to her? All the Roadhouse stuff is seemingly out of sequential order. With a lot of stuff, especially, it seems like it's not as important to have seen some of this in order, and it seems to be there to kind of dole out a little information here and there.
Yeah,
the itching scene, being run off the road, all this stuff seems like it could be shuffled in any
order. Discussion at the table, it was 3 new characters they hadn't seen before to begin with, talking about other characters we haven't seen.
Yes.
So there's been a bunch of that, and then the conversations with Charlie and Audrey were talking about characters we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
Or Billy's a character that may have been the character we see on screen, but there's nothing to verify that that's who that was.
I noticed too, somebody said, the guy that ran into the diner, did he say, has anybody seen Bing? I saw somebody mention, Billy. Was it? Because somebody mentioned that. I said, oh, wait, I think it was Bing, I thought. But it doesn't matter. We'll find out. It's not, there's so many other things going on right now.
Yeah, like I said, it's just
we can forget Billy.
It feels like Lynch, for us and everybody involved on this episode is kind of doing anti-fan service the past couple episodes. Because you get Audrey, but not in the way a lot of people wanted to see her. And then you get
it's just trolling at this point.
3.5 minute chunk of James performing his love song.
But at least this episode was 59 minutes. So it wasn't like you got a 52-minute episode with 3 minutes.
So then
of James.
too, it didn't end on the performance of James. It ended on Big Ed at the gas farm sitting and drinking soup and then burning a piece of paper. And that's another one where people talked about there being something in the reflection, because it does look like there might be some movement in the reflection when Big Ed is just kind of sitting there still.
Yeah.
So is that an intentional mistake?
Lights the
piece of paper.
Yeah. And is this, have anything to do with Leland Palmer saying the guy by the lake that used to flick matches at him, firewalk with me?
Play with fire.
Or is it just something Big Ed's doing? Is he testing his reflection?
Or is he just bored and waiting for a customer to come through?
And is he looking at the road, or is he staring at the reflection when he's looking out? And also, is he eating cream corn? We don't know that for sure either.
It's
and
because
Sarah Palmer too.
We also see Sarah Palmer's house. We see inside her house when she's sitting and watching like this 25-second loop of a boxing match.
And was that Dougie's boss?
Well, yeah. Is it Bushnell? And then you hear like kind of electrical flickering sounds. And then like I saw a picture where somebody did like a still frame from that scene, and then it looks like there's cream corn by the couch that she was eating or that was in the room. You see that there's like a picture of Laura and Donna, and then there's other like. So what is the significance of all of that? And the cream corn's a big part of the show. So
yeah, I'm very interested to see what's in her kitchen. And
Yeah.
two, like, when does this take place? When does this scene? I think it's really awesome that Lynch doesn't get hung up. Like he's never got hung up on having a set plan and sticking to it. You've heard about how reactive he is on set and like what is willing to explore things and change things on the fly. So it's so awesome to see him get the money to shoot something of this breadth and this scope with, along with Mark Frost too, because I don't want to like take any credit away from him as well. And then get to play with it in the edit like this as well. Like it's just so wild because he could never get funding for an 18-hour movie, you know what I mean? Or like 5 movies.
Well, if you go back
five Twin Peaks films.
If you go back and watch something like Inland Empire, because it was all shot on DV cameras back when those were kind of in their infancy, or digital video being used professionally in big films. Because if you rewatch it now, it does not stand the test of time very well because the DV stuff did not look great.
Quality-wise, it doesn't. Yeah.
Quality-wise, and I mean, it has a very specific quality to it. But that was one where I think the DV was attractive to him because there wasn't really the cost issue that you have with film of just filming a bunch of stuff. Because the movie is pretty long, and it even has like the rabbits thing that he made, like with Naomi Watts. Like in the movie is like the subplots. So I think that. Like, that was like him, like, freeform, kind of free to do whatever, because it was like relatively low budget movie, relatively low cost.
It felt like a jazz performance on film with cinema. You know what I mean?
Just or kind of... like those Grateful Dead, like 40-minute performances, or the live versions where somebody like does a guitar solo for 30 minutes. But then like Twin Peaks, The Return is more of like that more. Like, we did our normal podcast, the House Movie Store podcast, we did Blue Velvet recently, or this most recent one, and you watch that and it's a very straightforward movie. There's like some dream sequences and some stuff in it, but it's all like kind of sequential, it's all in order, it's all pretty straightforward and easy to watch. There's really nothing that you have. There's a lot of things in there that are metaphors and a lot of symbols and a lot of things you can take away meaning from, but you can watch as a straight movie and enjoy it. This it's farther away from that. There's still a straight narrative throughout, but it gets you there in a lot of ways that are not the conventional ways to tell that narrative.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of, he's not telling the same, easily deciphered linear story that, like earlier on in his career, or the original Twin Peaks, where, it's a network sitcom on ABC in the 90s. This is more nuanced than that and showing you things in different ways, but it's still much more structured and contained than Inland Empire. Or, some of the stuff like Lost Highway or Mulholland Drive, where it's, it's interpretation and he doesn't tell you what the interpretation is, which one is right, which one is wrong. This is much more contained and much more structured, even if it gets to a lot of the plot points in unconventional ways, like episode 8.
Yeah.
So we only have, a few episodes left. Are we going to get more episodes like 8?
Yeah, somebody brought up like, are we going to ever hear the story of the woman who uttered the words Blue Rose? It was kind of the name of the Blue Rose Task Force. And I'd comment somewhere, I'm like, that would be great to hear another episode 8 episode, and not necessarily the same way, but just something that is out of context in the plot line of this series, and that kind of gives you some backstory on this woman that says Blue Rose. Is it the woman who ate the bug, early in the series?
Yeah, was that Sarah Palmer?
Yeah. Is it going to be a part 2 to part 8, and this is the resolution of the Blue Rose thing, and this connects to, the overall storyline, because You have Major Briggs saying Blue Rose,
Yeah.
and even the woman. I don't know if this is intentional. This could be just a thing, but the woman in the Roadhouse looking, watching James and crying. She has like 7663, which maybe is July 6th, 1963. Could mean nothing, but also she has a rose on her other arm, I think.
Yeah.
That could be her own tattoos. Who knows? But
and two, we forgot to mention when Mr. C is questioning Ray before he kills him, he asked him if he saw Major Briggs.
Mm-hmm, yes.
So all this stuff.
Well, and again, the Philip Jeffries stuff. So I think, for me personally, I almost feel like, okay, Diane is working with Philip Jeffries. Philip Jeffries' goal is to take out Mr. C.
Yeah.
So, because of the work he's doing with Ray and everything. So I think Diane might be working with him, and maybe Philip Jeffries says, we don't know who to trust. There's a doppel-coop. There may be a Doppel Gordon or Miguel Ferrer's character.
Because once again, we don't know the exact timeline of events, but Diane got the coordinates and knows about where in Twin, or knows the coordinates are pointing to Twin Peaks.
Mm-hmm.
So if she had that information, you think it would have been passed to Mr. C by now, if she was 100% under his, working for him. And assuming the story's all told in a linear fashion, and that happened before the current episode.
And, the fingerprint stuff, you mentioned this before we recorded. Did that go through some database that they threw away? Is the Vegas stuff...
Yeah, the Fusco brothers, they get prints that say Dougie is an FBI agent that escaped from a prison 2 days before, and they don't believe it and throw it away. So does that trigger something?
So does Philip Jeffries somehow monitoring any database checks on this? Does he find that out and then text Diane, do they know about Vegas yet? And maybe that's the Vegas thing. And then they're like, what do we know about Vegas? And maybe they'll look into it. Maybe they won't. But yeah, I feel like a lot happened in this episode. Like we got dripped a lot of information. And it seemed like Cooper, like, who is he sending Tim Roth and Jennifer Jason Leigh's character to kill?
So they're going through Utah.
Is it Dougie and I already forgot his name. The guy's trying to kill Dougie. Duncan Todd. Is it those two?
That would make sense.
Yeah. So 5 episodes, 5 hours. Comes on at 8:00 now, in case you missed that as well. So the last episode is going to be 2 hours.
So something I don't remember.
The last 2 episodes.
I don't remember if it was you discussed this or if it was somewhere else. But at Comic-Con, they had a panel, and Naomi Watts said that, like, when she auditioned for it or read for it, she just got, like, her lines and then the line of the other characters, but, like, without the names. So she didn't know until they were going to start shooting that she was opposite of Kyle MacLachlan. So if she had the script for her lines, but didn't know that she was going to be opposite Agent Cooper, does that mean there are no scenes with Cooper and Janie E after he's Cooper?
It could be just meaning...
Or it could just be leaving out stuff from the script. Like, I remember hearing that somewhere.
Yeah, I didn't know about that.
And so there's theories like, so, there's not many episodes left. So I know a lot of people had estimated that Cooper would be back, like, middle of the season. Episode 10, 11, 12, 13 was each passing episode. I think it's going to be the last 2 episodes.
Yeah, I would be surprised if it's the last 2. I think it's be the last episode at the end or something.
Yeah.
But if it was the last 2, that would be really cool. But yeah, it would be weird to get him back almost at this point.
Well, to get him
any earlier than the very end,
because you have like the convergence of the storylines, but then like right now with Mr. C being in Montana and having the coordinates, and then also knowing that where Philip Jeffries is or where he's supposed to be, the Dutchman's or whatever, like all of that's kind of unclear. So what is Mr. C's plan? Is it to get Jeffries or go to the coordinates? Or, the ring is back in the lodge, so did that ring, when it got taken off Dougie and it melted away and Dougie became the orb or whatever, and Mike had the ring in the lodge, did Mike then give the ring back to Philip Jeffries, which is how it got to Ray in the prison? Or was it Mike himself? I know, as you mentioned, it's possibly it was Mike the one who was in the prison as the guard who gave it to Ray. So it's unknown, like, is there only one owl ring? Are there multiple owl rings? I remember, like, in the book, The Secret History of Twin Peaks, there was discussion of the owl ring. It appeared in Firewalk with me. So it's a ring that's been around. And we've never seen more than one concurrently.
In the book, too, they talk about how it was Lewis and Clark. Right? Was it Lewis? Was he writing the log at the beginning of that book? Anyway, he came along that tribe, the Indian tribe that had the ring, and he could tell that they didn't make it. And they said they got it from the white men, like behind the waterfalls or something. And it's, it seemed like, okay. And they make a note like, what white men was it? Were there some French traders? So it very much seems like there was possibly some time traveling, or somebody maybe from the modern day gave it to them that kind of appeared there, because they made a point to say like there shouldn't have really been many white men around there at that time. And he also says put it on this specific finger or whatever, like
the ring finger.
We're getting a lot of lore, a lot more lore about Twin Peaks in this series. And I'm really enjoying it.
We're getting a lot of the lore filled in, not through exposition dumps, but through things that are happening. And like you said, there's like the book, The Secret History of Twin Peaks, and then like the final dossier that comes out in October, so after the series ends.
And there's like a Bookhouse Boys journal. Did you see that link I sent you?
Yeah.
I didn't even hear about that book. That's also coming out October 31st, the same day as the final dossier.
So like how all this stuff ties together, and like Ed's a Bookhouse boy, but he, at the diner, he seemed to be in good spirits initially, and then later he's not, or he doesn't appear to be. So, it'd be interesting. So does Big Ed or any of, does James, Big Ed, do any of them get tied into the Bookhouse stuff leading into the finale?
I hope they do. I hope it's a bunch of the Bookhouse boys, kind of helping out.
And somebody like Bobby, who Bobby and James were at odds during the original run of the series because of Laura and Donna and all that stuff. But now it seems like if they were to have an interaction, it would be neutral or positive, because Bobby's kind of turned things around, and James doesn't seem to be a terrible person, or vastly different than he was. Well, you could argue if you hated the character or not, but vastly different he did not appear to be, just as Yoda would say it. But so like the episode gave us a little bit more. It didn't move a lot of the key storylines closer together or show you threads that would come back together. Because, like I said, you have Mr. C in Montana, and then he has a couple possible locations to go to. They haven't really been saying what the dates are and all these things, so you don't know. Like, so is the next episode October 1st, and the next one we'll see Bobby and Hawk and Truman go into the woods and go to this location? Unknown, and you have to think that if it's episode 14, it needs to start kind of, putting some of the narratives in motion. Like, how does Dougie get from Las Vegas to Twin Peaks?
Yeah. Is it Gordon Cole and them do they pick him up?
It doesn't seem like there's much left for him to do. And if the Fusco brothers running as prints through the database would trigger something that would then have Gordon and Albert or anybody go to get him, or tip off Philip Jeffries or anybody that would be aware of
Now, when they got the prints for Major Briggs, they said something along the lines of, we got a hit for his body. We've had a lot of hits before.
Yeah, or like the past 16 years.
Yeah, and they weren't sent anything.
Yeah.
There was just a hit on it, I think. Yeah. So maybe the same sort of situation will happen.
Because if there's a hit against that, you would think they would send someone to investigate since he's missing and escape prison. So I think that would be the thread that could maybe bring Dougie into Gordon and Albert or anybody, just because otherwise I'm not sure how you get him to Twin Peaks naturally.
Yeah, we've seen some promo shots too of him driving a car and stuff. It seems to be Cooper. I personally think that is Evil Coop.
Well,
based on his eyes, I don't know. I just feel like that's Evil Coop, and he is going to try to deceive some people. One other article I read that was really interesting. I don't know if I sent it to you. It said, "Is the insurance salesman, is he the key to some of this?"
Yeah, the insurance salesman that showed up in like the first the 2-hour premiere to and asked Lucy to see Sheriff Truman, and she says which one, and he's confused.
And
by
that
it.
Totally throws him, almost like he's somebody, as they said, he's almost like trained, like it's almost like he's a robot or a fabricated person to some degree, and he's just like, it locks him up like a computer.
Yeah, so I saw that, and there's so many threads out there of things like that. It's like stuff that could be important or just throwaway moments.
The speculation from that was essentially he was supposed to give Truman a card, and she was asking the questions, and it really threw him, and then he left. Some people think possibly this is Cooper is back in his normal state, but he doesn't know who to trust or you know what I mean, who he can go to, or it could be evil Coop. Who knows? But they thought that maybe it's Cooper has returned, and the card he handed to him says like Douglas Jones, whatever. You know what I mean? And call this number. I don't know if it's Douglas Jones. Why would he call that number? But anyway, that insurance salesman I totally forgot about. But there's all these little things sprinkled throughout this series that kind of seemingly go nowhere, and then he's able to reconnect.
Was that just to bring you to make you aware that there are two Trumans?
Yeah,
and then for that to be like a reveal.
Yeah,
so it's kind of hard to know like what's a throwaway, just moment, and what is like possibly relevant to the plot.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff with the wait and see.
I super enjoyed this episode. Like, every episode I watch, I'm almost like the last one I thought was good, and I really enjoyed the first half a whole lot, and the last half, it was like perplexing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't extremely satisfying. For me, this one was extremely satisfying, and like this felt like classic Twin Peaks kind of. It also had some more, layered elements and some more confusion that was, I think, a positive as far as the timeline stuff that kind of stood out and everything. So like I love this episode.
Yeah.
I can't wait for next week again. And two, like, what was it? This channel Sky Go or something in Germany accidentally aired episode 14 instead of 13. So look out for spoilers on that.
Yeah. So don't watch that.
Yeah, that would be very interesting to have watched that out of order if Twin Peaks, if David Lynch says you can watch it in any order, it doesn't matter. So
yeah. So that all begs questions of timeline stuff. We'll see more as the episodes go along, how more of this stuff fits together. So I think that'll wrap up our discussion of episode 13. So keep an eye out. We'll be doing all these videos for the remainder of the season. And also, too, if you like Blue Velvet and Twin Peaks, you can check out our podcast. It was a video podcast. We didn't have our normal third person Derek on there, but William and I did it, and we talk about news and everything, but then towards the end we go into full spoilers and kind of discuss Blue Velvet and review that. So if any Lynch fans are interested in some more Lynch content, there's always that from us. Yep, so I think that'll wrap up this video discussion. We'll see you on the next episode.